Alright, a couple of weeks ago I attempted to turn some coffee into a chocolate bar, and somebody in the comments actually asked me to see if I can go the other way, turning cocoa into coffee. So let's do it, and I really think you guys should try this one because the result was really good. And I'm also going to take this opportunity to answer the #1 question / comment from the original chocolate video. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Now you can directly buy cocoa nibs from the internet, but let me just give you a quick run through in case you want to start from a more basic setup. So if you're starting from the fruit, you're going to want to open the fruit by cutting it open and removing the pulpy, fleshy, delicious bean parts. You're going to want to ferment them for a week in a glass jar and then dry them using a dehydrator. It's a bit of work, but honestly it's pretty fun, and I guarantee you will smell things you've never smelled before. I will link to the chocolate video which goes over this process really in depth, and it works well. Alternatively, you could skip a few steps and save quite a bit of money if you pick up a bag of cocoa beans like this. It costs about $20, and I'll put a link down in the description below. If you choose to go down this route, you simply need to roast the beans by placing them in a 325-degree Fahrenheit oven or 160-degree Celsius oven for about 5 minutes to warm the beans up, and then turn the temperature down to 275 or 135 degrees Celsius for about 20 minutes. They'll go from smelling really funky to very chocolatey. Just let the beans cool down completely because nothing is as annoying as peeling hot beans. So once they've cooled down completely, we can start actually making this cocoa chocolate tea coffee thing. So to do this, I just needed to peel the shells off the beans. So I just gave them a little pre-crack with a blunt object, then pulled them apart and separated them using my fingers, and just kind of collected all the chocolate interiors in a bowl. And it still amazes me how chocolatey this stuff is, which isn't surprising because it is chocolate, but you know, it's just kind of a bizarre feeling seeing that this stuff is what really makes a chocolate bar. All right, now I've collected about 70 grams of the cocoa nibs, which I just transferred into a different bowl for filming purposes. And just a quick note, somebody did mention that you can make a tea out of the shells, but I'm gonna leave that for another day. Now I wanna brew this stuff like I would normally make a cup of coffee, but honestly, I was also in very new territory here, and I did find some kind of grifty feeling, super expensive products out there marketing themselves on healthy cocoa tea, but I was like, let's just try to see if we can figure out how to do this on our own. So I decided to make it like I would make my normal coffee. I placed the peeled cocoa nibs into a spice grinder and tried to grind it up like I would with my coffee. Now honestly, this was the #1 comment on the original chocolate video, which was whether or not I could grind up cocoa nibs using this sort of spice grinder. And it sorta works. If you do this, make sure to try and knock loose the clumps to ensure an even grind. And eventually, the chocolate started to clump bad, and the grinder really started to struggle. Eventually, I really couldn't get it to grind so much more. You can hear it groaning really badly here, so I just decided to stop. But looking at what we got here, it's not that bad, and honestly, if you wanted to make chocolate, this would be a pretty good pre-grind step before putting it in the mortar and pestle. All right, so now let's brew this stuff. So I loaded up about 16 grams of this cocoa stuff into the AeroPress and then added about 200 milliliters of near boiling water. I gave it a good mix with the paddle and just let it sit for about 30 seconds or so. So then I placed the cap on there, which has a wet filter in there. I know it's kind of hard to see. Screwed it closed and then flipped over the thing and began to plunge. By the way, as far as I know, this is one of only 2 of these mugs that exist in the known universe. So when I started pressing on the plunger, it was going well, but it got progressively tougher and tougher to press. And I started to get flashbacks to my really old video where I tried to make cheese in an AeroPress. Just like what happened there, fine particles began to clog the filtration process, and the pressure I applied eventually caused a valve failure along the side. Now, although that didn't totally work, I was able to collect some of the stuff, and it smelled really good and chocolatey. And if we look closely, we can even see cocoa butter on the top, which at this temperature is a liquid and just starts floating on the top, and you can see it as all those little yellow dots. Now, I'm not 100% satisfied with this, and I want to see if I could collect more of this stuff. So I tried a different method for making coffee, which is using a pour-over carafe. Now, this pour-over carafe has a coarser filter, so I decided to use that, and I just placed 50 grams of the cocoa into the filter bin and brought 750 milliliters of water to near boiling and then started to pour this over. I just initially poured a little bit in just to make sure everything got all nice and wet, and then just poured a little bit more water in afterwards. Now, just like before, it was filtering out super slowly. However, it was working, although after a few minutes, it really started to clog again. So I was able to collect some of this cocoa tea / coffee. Now I will say it's totally possible that I've ground the cocoa too fine or something else. Maybe if I had a French press, that might be something to try. Now that being said, I did collect a fair bit of this stuff, so we can test how it tastes. And it tastes pretty freaking amazing. It has all of the niceness of a hot cocoa without all the creaminess and sugar that you normally get. Now, as a person that likes to drink my coffee black, this was kind of on par in terms of intensity. And if you do like black coffee, maybe this is something to give a try. All right, so this video is only about half successful, so if you do give this a try, let me know how yours turns out. and maybe we can figure out how to do this together. I really recommend giving this one a go. All right, with that being said, that's it for this week. Next week, I'm gonna be making some instant pumpkin spice latte using the amazing freeze jar from Harvest Right. So I'll see you guys next week, and all right, bye.